Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Golden Podcast where we have interviews with world-class TCM community leaders to discover their stories, habits, psychology, and secrets that led to their success. And someone I've known for a number of years now, I'm really excited to chat with and dive a lot deeper into his methods. Yaron Seidman, welcome to the show, Yaron.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. I've always enjoyed your lectures and anything that I've ever heard from you as being so heart-led and always coming back to that. Anyway, that's my take on it. But I probably should enroll in the program. But I would love to start with your story, like we just said before we hit record, kind of in tradition with these podcasts. So, the diverse backgrounds, and I'm sure you have one. I'm pretty sure you didn't start out in the U.S., but so rewind back as far as you want, kind of your influences or what kind of got you into Chinese medicine and where you are kind of at today.
Okay, well, I could start in many different places, but maybe I want to just start in my childhood just for 1 minute.
Right.
And says, I grew up in a, not so wealthy neighborhood in the south of Israel in the desert. And, my father was hardworking. Both my parents were hardworking. And I just remember from the many different things, my father always used to tell me, you are a nonconformist, which in his language meant you never listen. You always do what you want and you don't listen to anyone. So then fast forwarding to when I'm 18, 19, and I was still living in Israel at that time, I started learning some alternative holistic medicine, and that it was like bioenergy and reflexology and healing and all kind of weird stuff that I'm not sure that I want to even mention here, like really weird stuff.
Okay.
But I wasn't that satisfied, and then if I were to give you the full story, I had a girlfriend that moved to New Zealand where her brother used to live, and I moved there, and he was learning in an acupuncture school. So he said, why don't you join? And I joined that school. It was like a small school in Auckland, not a real school, but a little teacher with few students, and they got few teachers from Nanjing University to come over and teach, and that kind of TCM stuff.
This was a while back, right? You said early
it was like
90s?
In 92, yeah.
Okay, yep.
And then, and I was really excited. I learned these things, yin, yang, and 5 elements, and I was like, in heaven.
Yeah, cool.
But then, and then in 93, one of the first Tai Chi teacher that I had there organized me a trip to Beijing to his family to learn Tai Chi, but also Chinese medicine in some clinic in a factory somewhere, like not the regular conventional schools and stuff, in a factory with some guy. And they used to have this factory clinics, and I couldn't speak any Chinese, and this whole thing started to get me really going, because I started to learn TCM for a year or two now after all the holistic healing and things, and it was much more exciting for me because it had a system to it, yin, yang, there's some solid theory, that kind of thing. Right. But then the nonconformist started kicking in. And I'm like, wait, I can't really speak Chinese, and I can't speak to this family I'm staying with, and I see there's all kind of original text. And so, I met in Beijing another girl, and she was from Germany, so I moved to Germany, and you get the pattern with me, kind of moving after the girlfriend that goes. And then in Germany, I learned German, and I joined the university there in Freiburg, and I started to learn Chinese literature and language to speak Chinese.
Right.
And then I started, and that brought me kind of just fast forwarding to 97, 98, brought me to a more classical training. I went back to China back and forth, and I started to learn more like the classics, Shang Hanlun, the Yellow Emperor, and now more in Chinese rather than English. And then I had that trip in my mind, I was like, originally I was more learning some modern Chinese medicine, but now more authentic. And this is pretty much the division that we have today in the marketplace. The ones who do more modernized, the ones who do more classical, and each one has their trips. And I was in both these trips.
Yeah, okay.
One that is modern and excited, the one that is more classical and then think they are authentic.
Yeah.
But then the nonconformist kicked in again. And I'm like, no, I'm not this, I'm not that. I want to find out, like if you would try to define me, what are you? Are you a classicist? Are you modernist? I'm none of the above. I'm just like a nonconformist. I just want to learn what's working,
Right.
what's really has no bogus to it. But this could be, and from my experience, it was on both ends. The modernist, who was very practical, also had all kind of communist stuff in there and all kind of thing. The classicist that seems to be more authentic, but also had all kind of bogus stuff going on there.
Right.
And I wasn't happy with this and that, and so I started to venture out by myself and I started to develop my own thing. And then more or less, this is my story, like how I went through. At the end, I immigrated to the U.S. and again had another girl here.
Are you married?
Yes, eventually. Married with 3 kids, and I settled down and stopped with this whole girl thing.
Yeah. Where are you now? You're in
Connecticut.
Connecticut. Okay. Yeah, you've been there for quite some time. That's where all your clinic and
that's my
located.
clinic. Yeah.
Cool. So
And, but I'm mostly online. My school is online, and most of my patients are from around the world, so it's not really a local clinic.
Right. Okay. So, but you did, just for the sake of completing that story, you did start a clinical practice for a while, but that later we'll get into the online stuff. But you did have
It is a clinic now too. It's just that I see on the computer long distance patients.
Yeah.
So it used to be everybody local in Connecticut, but now it's kind of there is some local crowd, but also from all over the world kind of thing.
Yeah. So people contact you to learn your methods from a traditional Chinese, from whatever we're going to call it, from a Chinese medicine perspective, as well as patients find you through and just want consultation on. Is there any? Do you have a focus in your practice? You'll treat anyone that gives you a call?
Well, for many years I started to specialize in infertility, and I did it for many years. But over the last few years, there's still a lot of infertility, but it started to be all kind of very difficult cases that nobody can help, and so it started to be more different things
come to you. Yeah. So you've been in practice since 1990? When, about late 90s or?
Yeah, I mean, I moved here at the end of '96 to the U.S., and it took me a few months or a year to get all the licensing and stuff. So, like from the end of '97, I was in practice.
Yeah. Okay.
In Connecticut. So.
Okay. So
about 20 years.
About 20 years, and your kids
but
are.
But I had practice before in Germany. I used to 94, 5, 6 in Germany. I used to practice.
Okay. So all right. So been a long time. So you. How did it start out, your style, and then how did it evolve? I know you said you were incorporating the modernist and then the classical, and now we can kind of segue into your Hunyuan. Just the evolution of your philosophy or mentality behind your practice.
Well, I think if I translate my nonconformist attitude, it basically means that I want to learn everything, but I want to learn it in order to filter it out and to find the real precious stuff. So it's not like I have aversion to anything, like I don't want to learn modern TCM, or I don't want to learn this. I actually want to learn what everyone has to say. But the more I work on myself, the more I try to get better, the more I have tools to evaluate if it has value for me or not.
Right.
So it's basically about filtering out, taking, like you have a net that you fish out a lot of stuff and you just drop out a lot of things until you find really good stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end, if your system is full of good stuff, it becomes really good.
So Yaron's pearls, and that we before we hit record, we talked about being authentically yourself. Our conversation was in a slightly different direction, but ultimately the same shit, right? You need to be yourself, otherwise you're gonna associate and run into the problem of trying to be someone else, basically. So, yeah. And that's not Yaron's case, right? So you.
Well, I can tell you some of the things that I worked on myself that I find really valuable,
please,
is that in order to succeed in finding, like filtering information, what's good, what's bad. It's very difficult to know what's good, what's bad. Like you read articles, apples cause cancer.
Right.
You don't know, is it good, is it bad? I mean, people ate apples for thousands of years, but now they say it causes cancer, or milk or something.
Right.
It's hard to tell. But I find that, this is at least my way, working on myself. I had a few main obstacles that I had to overcome, and I'm still dealing with it. One is like my own selfish need to succeed.
Right.
If I overcome this, I can start seeing things more clearly, because sometimes when you want to succeed so much financially and fame, name, stuff like this, it starts to warp your vision a little bit. And then you say, wow, this is really successful. If I sell that, it's really successful. If I do this, it's really successful. It needs to come, like, at least for me, from something that is more genuine. And what do I mean? Like, let's say my patient is my child. Right. So what do I care if it's making money or not? It really needs to be the real thing.
Right.
Like with your child, it's not like how much money am I going to make? It's like, is it really working or not?
Yeah.
So for me, that was an obstacle. It's a continuous obstacle that needs to be overcome. But I think this helped me a lot, learning a lot of things. I learned a lot of things, and I filtered out of it 90 or 95% of the things,
right,
deciding that they're not so good.
Right.
But this was the criteria. What's the criteria? Is it really working, or is it I want it?
Right,
like okay. It's good for me. If it's good for me, it starts to be tainted. You start to assimilate things that can make really good business. But if it was your son, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say here, but he's screwed.
Yeah, of course you are.
Like it has to be like very pure. Is it really it? And in that sense, the methods that I start to develop has a big part to it that are practical. In other words, it cannot be just theory. Is it fancy sounding?
Right.
It has to be really, really working, really reproducible. And in that sense, it's very much close to the modern TCM. That's the attitude. Very reproducible, very working.
Right. I think a common pitfall for so many of us, at times in our life at least, is falling into the trap of chasing shiny objects. And this sounds like your methodology to help ensure that isn't happening, because it can definitely bleed into, I might use this, or let's incorporate this because it'll sound good in marketing and we'll bring in more patients, but is it helping patients? I have no damn idea. So, yeah.
But I think that this is, is something I feel that I have to work on myself continuously. In other words, it's very easy to understand, but very difficult to implement,
Right.
Because like you said, when you see shiny object, you say, yeah, I'm not after shiny object, but then it's like, it's twinkle. Like it's hard because the heart tendency is selfish desires. It is that we have this.
Right.
We can't pretend to be like a Buddha. We're not Buddha. We're just regular guys or girls.
Yeah.
So it's a constant work on, is it really working or not? And I find myself for years and years now criticizing myself. Is it really or is it not?
Right.
It's like I never rest, even 20 years later. Is it really or is it not? It's like my mantra as far as trying to find out. Is it, but this I think helped me a lot.
So if I may reframe for myself, so I'm understanding, you and I'd like to know if there's how you check in. Will it work for my son? That's beautiful, but is this contributing to the betterment of my world and myself, or is this about significance? Kind of one or the other, that you're checking in, you have a gauge or a GPS or feedback mechanism. So how do you interpret things, or how do you check in on yourself? Like, do you have a bell that goes off a couple times a week that says, what are you doing? You're on, or,
Yeah. Well, I think, I like to do self-reflection very often.
Okay.
And oftentimes I find myself be very critical of myself, but not in a bad way. It's like, I first determined to myself what is the objective. The objective is to be more helpful, again, with my son or with other people.
Right.
I have the objective. The objective is very clear. It's not like, where am I going? What am I doing? I want to be more helpful. It needs to work more. So now when I'm self-reflecting on myself, did you do right? It doesn't matter. It could be from something more simple, like you mix herbs. Did you use the right herbs? Or because one of the herbs is more expensive, you didn't want to use so much of it, for example. Just something small like this. Are you tainted in your thought or not? And it could be also something much more sophisticated on different levels. Like, you do things. Did you really do it for the right purpose? In other words, you have a student in the school. They start to disturb everybody. Just for example, you kick them out. Did you do it for the right reason or not? And
right.
If it's really for the right reason, I want to promote it. Even if you do something that looks not good, it is good.
Right.
So I'm constantly trying to evaluate myself, the actions. It's like a self-reflection. Normally we tend to reflect on other people. They're not doing good. They are too bad.
Right.
But it is becoming easier with the years, the more it becomes easy, it becomes spontaneous. It's not so hard anymore. If you do it all the time, it's like a habit.
Practice, yeah.
So when people, and I want to give you time to ask questions.
No.
I'm saying when people, like when I engage people, when I teach seminars or something, and let's say they have criticism, I completely don't feel threatened because I'm constantly criticizing myself. There's like nothing new that anybody can tell me.
Yeah.
Like, well, why do you say that? What do you think that? I'm constantly thinking it on myself. So,
right.
And so that's part of it.
I love that. And it's ultimately what we're doing for our patients often is helping classify them by nature and giving them constructive feedback to maybe change the trajectory of their life. And so their health and wellness changes. I mean, for years and years and years now, I've paid people to help me self-reflect because there's a lot of blind spots.
Absolutely.
My ego gets in the way. So I appreciate this wisdom because, your experience and wisdom, you've been practicing for a long, long time. And this is why, I wanted you on the show. Because I know that, and this is a perfect segue into the Hunyuan, because it sounds like, your life, I don't know, your self-reflection is meditation or whatever kind of connection it is to yourself, but it sounds very heart-led. And I know that is, I'm probably not doing it any justice at all, but the foundation to the Hunyuan method that you have developed and teach now. Yeah.
It's a work in progress,
Right. So can you tell people about the Hunyuan then? I mean, it is your thing. This is you. This is how you step into the world and how people see you. So tell people about Hunyuan.
Well, I mean, just the name Hunyuan for me started from learning Hunyuan Tai Chi and Qigong with a famous teacher. So it comes from there, not from Chinese medicine. But I was very much influenced by it for some years, and especially by the teacher at the time, Feng Ziqiang. It was like very heartwarming to be with him, and that influenced me a lot. The word itself, Hunyuan, which means mixed origin, has a very ancient history, a couple of thousand years, and belongs to Confucius and Tang Dynasty scholars. So it's not like I invented it.
Yeah.
But technically, the medicine itself, for me, as I described it before, started from TCM and then more classical Neijing Shanghanlun, and then I ended up with a school called the Fire Spirit School in Zhengqingan from Sichuan, and they have like a certain idea, and I dug into it for quite some time. They call it supporting the young, and they used to use a lot of foods, aconite, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so my way took me there. It's like a Shanghanlun style, but I liked it very much because Zhengqingan, we're talking about 120, 30, 40 years ago, he was like very non-conformist too. When I read his commentary of the Shanghanlun, all of a sudden he takes few lines and he says, no, this looks like a mistake. Normally Shanghanlunist thinks that the book is like a god.
Right.
But this guy, he says it's the best book ever, but these lines are mistakes. All of a sudden he's doubting stuff. And this like resonated with this non-conformistic thing.
Yeah.
But then I read in one of his books that he says he has a teacher, Liu Yuan, and he really doesn't know what's going on with Liu Yuan, but even though he learned with him for 20 years, but he kind of eavesdropped. And so I started to find out, what is this Liu Yuan? And I found out his school is called the Huaishuan School. And they talk a lot about heart medicine, but also about physical medicine, herbs and stuff. So I have a lot of information from there that influenced me and helped me craft what I call Hunyuan. So it's not really I invented everything from scratch. So I do have these influences,
of course,
how over the years kind of guide me around. But still, one of the focal points in the Huaishuan school is that, you take all the ancient wisdom and you have to bring it to today. Right. And they are in the Qing dynasty, but I'm not in the Qing dynasty anymore, but it's that principle. Mm-hmm. We are in the 20th and the 21st century. So this was part of the work that I've been doing for some years, that this is now called Hunyuan Medicine, because I took some very ancient concept and just put them in a language that everybody can understand. So for example, we're talking about how life is incorporated into the body. I call it unification ability. So it's easy for us to understand. You have energy, you eat from nature, and then you bind with it. We call it unify with nature, right? So this logic is easy. But in the Qing dynasty for Liu Yuan, and this is called the dragon is being submerged in the water, which means talking about the I Ching and the trigrams, there is the water diagram that has one solid line in the middle and two broken line on top and the bottom. And for them, they said the man is connected to heaven and heaven energy is submerged in the body. And this is like the dragon, like in the I Ching. When you talk about the heaven trigram, there's descriptions of the 6 dragons and all kinds of stuff like this. Right. But if I would say today, let's practice Hunyuan medicine, it's about submerging the dragon, people is like, can't resonate because we're not in the Qing dynasty. We don't read the I Ching all day and we don't know what's the story with the dragon.
Right, yep.
Part of the work that I did is just not just translate it, but translate the meanings into contemporary language. And then people learn and says, wow, that makes really sense. And 200 years ago, in that language at that time, that made really sense. So this is a big part of Hunyuan, not really that I made it up, but I interpreted the meaning so it makes sense today, not just translated. But other than that, also I have developed some concept because I'm not just a translator. I'm working with it. My son is here. It needs to be even better. So I'm kind of actually further developing it more.
Okay, so so if someone wanted to learn more about Hunyuan, and so what is the whole? I know it's primarily an online learning platform, right? So Can you walk people through? What's involved and how what they would kind of learn along the way?
So basically, the way that I develop Hunyuan, if you don't mind, I'll just mention it in a few words.
Of course.
Is that I want to shift. I feel that that's necessary to shift from the regular medicine paradigm in general. The medicine paradigm is you get sick people in front of you and you need to medicate them.
Right.
This is what we think medicine is. You see, this person is sick, you medicate them. But I think medicine has, and that's how I learned also from Liu Yuan, Huaishuan, and all this, there's a different dimension there. Like Liu Yuan says, he learned the Confucius classics from 2,000 years ago thoroughly, and the word medicine is not mentioned even once. But on the other hand, the words benevolence and heart and this mentioned endless time. And he said, who would believe that when you use benevolence and heart things, what kind of a therapeutic effect can you get? Which is unbelievable. So this gives me like all kind of perspectives to say medicine is not just medicating people or giving them procedures.
Right.
And this is what Hunyuan is today. I have 3 different legs that this thing is standing on, and it's not just medicating people. So one is I call it Hunyuan body, the other I call it Hunyuan heart, and the third one is Hunyuan medicine, i.e. all kind of procedures, herbs, acupuncture, and the thought.
Right.
And the overall principle for me is to try to accomplish more with less. In other words, if someone has a problem, some disease, and I can teach them how to do an exercise and they get cured from it, it's much superior than if I medicate them and they get cured from it. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't do anything, they just exercised a little bit, right. If it is possible.
Yeah.
Likewise with the heart, if I can teach them in the heart to work on the heart, and then the whatever disease they have resolved without even giving them one licorice root. This is a higher level. This is the overarching principle. Try to heal people more by intervening less. Let them do it. Mm-hmm. And so this is when I teach now. I have the Hunyuan body track that has different courses to teach that, the Hunyuan heart track to teach all kind of things related to the heart, and the Hunyuan medicine track, herbs, acupuncture, all kind of how to intervene in people's lives and
right.
hopefully not mess them up.
Well, this is exactly why I wanted to chat with you and to play my part in bringing what you're teaching to the community, our community, more, because it resonates with me. As we talked about before hitting record, my practice began more in that you called it the Hunyuan Medicine, the mechanics, I call it, aspect, the body. And after 15 years now, I get that's one element, but I try to get that out of the way so I can connect in in what you're speaking to more, this Hunyuan heart, where you can, if you can help someone, change their trajectory from a psychological, or I'm trying to reframe the language again, even, for myself here.
Yeah.
It is something that will last them a lifetime and will help them cure themselves without taking the herbs. I agree. These are the messages that I'm starting to feel myself, and where it's what I want to connect with my patients myself as well, because maybe that's where I'm at in my life, and Bob Flaw, who we had on, I loved the same message. If he could deliver one pearl backwards to the community, it'd be to try to infuse more spirituality into your practices, because that's one place where that traditional Chinese medicine, more modernist, probably is really, even in classical, is lacking, and in some respects, or it's what's been maybe filtered out, like you said, more than it should be. And it's nice to see it coming back. You've practiced a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong, and maybe a good metaphor is that when you start to learn Tai Chi, something you see that is so beautiful and flowing and looks so magical, when you start to learn it yourself, you feel like the most clunky idiot in the world trying to learn all the steps and all the moves. And then finally you start to learn, and you begin to you've got the form memorized, and then after that you eventually get into it being actual Qi Gong or Tai Chi manifest. You flow, and it becomes more of a spiritual journey once the mechanics or the medicine part are done. This is my interpretation, and I'm just summarizing. I love what you're talking about here.
Thank you. Well, I would like to share with everyone, about this heart aspect, because we all do that. If we practice Chinese medicine of any kind, normally it's people that are a little bit different than the modern mechanical medicine. I think for most of us,
Right.
We're more kind, we're nice, we don't want to be abusive, and, we want to give more attention to patients. And this for me was from the beginning. Right. And I think it's like this for many people. But this, with the hard work that I've been doing now for some time, it's hard to share it, like how the experience is like, and I hope to try to do it here in the next minute, is just by sharing one or two stories. It's like it's different than just being nice and warm and kind. For example, 2 weeks ago I had a patient, and she's trying to get pregnant, but when I look at her, it looks like very, very gloomy, and I said, what's going on? She's a relatively new patient, started a few weeks ago. And she is opening up, and she says, my mother is going through chemotherapy. They found cancer, so our heart is in a big problem now, because we all love our mothers. And when they go through this radiation or whatever, it's really, really difficult. Yeah. But I have all of a sudden, these things, they like come over to me, and I can't even reproduce what's going on there in the session. But I would say that it feels like I put my hands through the screen now to you, and I'm holding you from the shirt, and I'm shaking you like this, and you like don't know what happened. And then I speak to her 2 weeks later, and you see her glowing. I told her what to do, how to think about it, how to feel, but it's hard for me to say it because you don't experience it. But 2 weeks later, you see her mother is still going through the therapy. But I told her what to do, and every morning now she's sending songs to her mother and this, and she's lighting up.
You're right.
So the power that you can get in this, it's more than just like be nice and kind. That's like you need to know first how to feel it, where to go, what to do, what to say. And the transformation is phenomenal. So for us, trying to get curative effect, not just make people feel better, this is fundamental, because when she had this gloomy thing going on, the energy is being sucked out. So you give herbs, you give acupuncture, whatever you want, it's very difficult to recover. It will be very difficult for her to get pregnant. At the end, it's about succeeding or not. And what's the success here? We want to help her. That's the success. Mm-hmm. So being kind is always good and nice in this, but we need more. This is like my attitude. Like, I need more than this. I need to go in, In the past, I used to ask people, teachers, and so I said, well, what do you do if someone gets angry, the patient? We tell them it's not good, right? Anger is bad for the liver. We tell them don't get angry. Really? Yeah. You tell someone all their life they're angry. You tell them don't get angry. Is that helping? Mm-hmm. It's almost like in the IVF clinics. The doctors always tell their patient, don't be, what do they say? Don't be stressed out. Just relax. Just relax.
Yeah, right.
And as soon as you say it, the patient is like freaking out.
Right.
So it's more than just being kind, saying nice thing. We need like real gong fu there. And this is something that needs to be trained and learned and researched. And I've been doing there quite some work. And it's really, really wonderful, that hard part.
That hard part. Well, if you're too focused on the mechanical side, you're almost keeping a barrier between yourself and your patient. That's my humble opinion, and so that connection that you're talking about is harder, and then their expectation of you is simply to give them medicine that better work because it's expensive, and then it forms a different relationship. And I see. And I'd love your opinion on, what we're seeing in our industry is a lot of our practitioners bleeding more and more and more into a functional medicine style of practice, where it's a little bit of Chinese medicine and a lot of testing and a lot of trying to figure things out through more of what I would call just naturopathic styles, and kind of abandoning more of this heartfelt or heart-led or that connection with the patient. What is it good? Is it bad? Is it okay that we are diverging?
Well, I mean, I think there's good and bad in everything. That's my style. Mm-hmm. And I think many people that want to do the more practical things, get supplements, get this, all kind of pills of all sorts, there is a good side to it. They're looking for more things, more techniques, more methods, more instruments to help people.
Right. And
this is good for a certain place. And that place is like, if I don't know much, at least I get this and that and to do stuff. But my attitude is always was like it. Just try to learn more. Try to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And why are we learning more? Is not to add more tools. It's just to filter out the bad ones.
Right.
So things that we used to use, we go deeper and deeper and deeper, and all of a sudden, and deeper could be on many different fronts, including working on myself to be a little bit less selfish. And not doing it for me to be successful. Like, really, no, my son is there. I'll give him these pills, no problem.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So on all different fronts, we work harder and harder to filter out the bad things and then start to acquire good, better things.
Right.
And this is my recommendation for everyone. And wherever we're at right now, it's good. It's not bad, But if we get stuck there, this is what Confucius called a real mistake.
Okay.
In other words, let's say we do a mistake, we get comfortable and we never change it. But if we research deeper and 5 years later we realize maybe a different thing is better, it wasn't a real mistake, according to Confucius. Like, as long as we work on ourselves to get better, this is the only thing that patients can ask from us. Are you really working on yourself to get better, or you got stuck in a certain level and you're just doing it now for the money?
Right.
If you really try to work on yourself, it doesn't matter which level you're at. You actually give to the patient your precious most.
Right.
And this is worth everything. It doesn't matter what the level is, even if you're a total beginner.
Right. Right.
You have the right heart to try better, to try harder. And I think maybe this is missing in the industry a little bit. You know, people at one point get financially successful and they start getting comfortable. Like,
right.
Why would I be so successful if I'm not the best already?
Right.
You know, that logic is a little warped, and I would recommend to shy away from this.
To shy away from that, yeah. Well, that, you know, that may be, you know, and it's good as, you know, some of the, you know, more experienced, wiser practitioners and like yourself and others I have and will get on the show too, just to be able to look back at your 20-year-old self or the 20-year or 30-year-old that's out there just starting in Chinese medicine too, and to be able to start on such a higher, you know, in a place that's so different than from where I started even, and for sure from where you started, you know, just first of all knowing strengths and weaknesses that they might have, but that the industry and that the medicine and different styles and ways to step forward may or may not have, you know, because I was speaking with Jimmy Yen, and what you're saying kind of seems really similar in some ways. He was defining or the difference between confidence and certainty. He said confidence is knowing, you know, what you can do and being kind of confident moving forward. Certainty is learning what you don't know and what you're not very good at and mixing those two together, you know.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty cool.
And yeah, I love that. And I feel like that's what you're kind of saying too. You need to be true to yourself and keep learning, and also like not, you know what you're not doing, and that being okay, right?
Well, if I had to reflect back, I would say that when I started my way, I felt that I knew the most. And the more you go, and I'm not saying it from artificially humble way or anything.
Right.
It's like when you started and you learn yin yang, 5 elements, that's it. You're on the top of the world. You know everything. There's nothing else better than that. But with the years, you know, you start to climb down from this mountain. Right. And as you climb down from this mountain of being self-righteous and knowing everything, you actually start to ascend a much higher mountain. Mm-hmm. You know, so this is my perspective. At the end, you know, things need to be very sincere and genuine. You know, it's your child, it's your mother sitting here. It's not a client, it's not a customer. And, you know, if you ever gave herbs to your mother, you better not think about anything else, just your most sincere heart, you know. And if you can translate this Gong Fu to other people, then it's very beautiful.
Right.
You know, then every person here is a precious person. They all have children, they have father, mothers, brothers, sisters. You try to help them the most, and it's not like, you know, and that's why for me it was like for many years as if I have a tiger wanting to bite my behind. No, you know, like you're learning, you're researching, you're trying to sift the good and the bad as if there's fire behind you.
Right.
It's not like, and, you know, it's not like, well, look, I graduated, certificate, whatever. You know, the clients, they don't know anyhow any difference. Doesn't matter. It's not that attitude. You know?
Right.
It's like you start seeing people in a different way. People are like, for me, they're not patients. You know, it's like people. You see people. Each one has a heart. Each one has a life, has a family. It's like very personal. For me, helping people is very personal. It's not a business.
You know, that may be the strength of what we do and how we are allowed to connect, and kind of maybe I would postulate that is, you know, maybe an overall perception that the world has of how Chinese medicine is unfolding. You know, at least in contrast to a Western medical model. We're more trying to individualize and connect with people on a person-to-person basis. And I love that you've developed something to really try to keep that and quantify it, because it's hard, especially, when those mechanics or the medicine side can be so addictive to learn about as well, and almost, thinking more through the mechanics than connecting with the person. So I'm in your school and I love it, and I'm open to declare that as well. And I hope. Oh, well, that's going to lead me into this question. Where do you think everything's kind of headed? I mean, Chinese medicine is really spreading its wings in the West and all over the world. But what's next?
If I may, without trying to be too much self-promoting here, I did research for a few years, and I wrote a book. Some people helped me to write it. It's called Chinese Medicine Liberation, and the book is very heavy. It's 1,000 pages book. Most practitioner can't even lift it.
Yeah.
It's so heavy. But this few years research that I did really was to answer this one question. Like, where is it headed? Why? What? Right. And, so I researched what happened in the 20th century quite a bit, just to realize what are the problems, where do I want to go with that? And I didn't know what will be the outcome. Like, I thought that I would before I started it, and it will emphasize to me that modern TCM is not good, blah, 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 that kind of thing. But really, that's not what happened at the end of the process. At the end of the process, I realized that as Chinese medicine has transformed during the Republic, the Communist, and modern times, every time there was a reason for that, survival reason. And it doesn't, the particulars don't matter here right now. But it really highlighted to me all of a sudden, and I spent many thousands of hours on doing this project, almost brought me to a financial collapse just to do this one book. But at the end, it was worth it. I realized that really, and maybe it's stupid, like, why did you need to waste so much time to realize that it's so obvious? What is needed in the 21st century for me to develop the medicine is really to give it more heart. It's not that we're missing doctors today or practitioners and there's not enough drugs. To the contrary, everybody's loaded with procedures, with drugs. Chinese medicine or Western medicine, everybody is getting 10 times more procedures than what they should. They should just be left alone. Maybe learn some exercise and how to eat and go to sleep well and be happy in the heart. But I think this become in a great deficiency. Like, how to really, at first as practitioner to patient, how to be full of heart with them. Second is how to teach them to increase their ability to harmonize their heart. Not just say be happy and don't be angry. Like, find real methods, some things to help them. And also even these exercises thing, the Tai Chi and Qigong and Neigong, all this, just teach them some exercises so they can be healthy. Stop medicating them. I mean, I understand the business side of it, procedures, work in the business, but people just need help, and even if they don't know that, and that help is not more procedures. In the 1920s, in China, most of the people would die because there's no doctors, there's no drugs, even no acupuncturists. There are only some shamans in this, and there's no medical care. But if you ask yourself today, do we have medical care? Everybody is loaded 10 times more than what they should get on all fronts. But they need help. So what do they normally do? Get more medical care. But I think they need help in a different way. Like, teach them how to take the power back. Right now, everybody is customers. There are millions of customers. And I get the business side of it, but people need to stop being customers. They need to be more healthy. They need to get control. They need to learn things, how to, this is like where I went with that, it's like in my heart, that's what feels like, teach people more how to be healthy. And it's in my academy, it's not just teaching people how to be a technician so they can make money.
Right.
I actually have quite a few patients going in there. And, just this morning, as you notice, I started something free online that's meditation session just for free to help people get healthy. Stop buying procedures. And all the acupuncturists who watch it, I hope you'll forgive me for that.
Right.
Trying to take business away. Everybody's trying to survive. We need to make some money. But I think, just need to have, it's like a new spearhead. We need to spearhead medicine in a different direction. Like, people need to be able to have more and more tools to help themselves.
Right.
And this might be not the best financial thing. If I would be like a big conglomerate corporation, I would get fired right away. It's like, we're trying to make more money. What are you doing to us? And I get it. I'm not afraid of money. I'm not afraid of charging people money. I have no issue there. Just want to help people.
Right. Right.
So this is something that, and I think all of us, even if we're practitioners and we are technicians, we learn some techniques how to teach people, and we can charge for that. So you charge them, but you liberate them. You teach them then to be self-sufficient. So we can still make money,
of course.
But it's like, that's what I think from my whole research about what happened in the 20th century. This was my conclusion.
Right.
It's like, try to teach people how to stop being customers,
right?
Clients, whatever you want to call it.
Well, thank you for distilling 1,000 pages into just a couple minutes there, because I don't know when I'd get around to going through that. But that's I love that message, and that seems to be consistent. Maybe it's who I'm attracting here, because and I like your distinction between. Of course, we need to have, clientele or patients or business or whatever terminology feels right for you, but it's what I teach in my course too, that is, they're timeless principles as to how, like I was telling you before, mostly based on relationship building and systems and organization. You can't try and dupe people or pull them into your front door with a cane or something, to trick them into trying your acupuncture, and if people love the acupuncture because it does have quite profound effect, great, they keep doing that, but ultimately the acupuncture is like the stitches, but you need to help them heal underneath that as well. And I'm so loving what you're saying, Yaron. Thank you so much for that.
I think, if I can just add one word to clarify it, if we could develop the medicine, and this is still work in progress, to such an extent that, you see people, you heal them, they stay healthy, and they learn how to be healthy. I mean, it's contrary initially to a business model of just sell more, you need more patients and that kind of thing. And we're definitely not doing what modern medicine is doing. They have the method. You take drugs and you should get hooked onto it.
Right.
This is the model. That's how you make money. But for us, we want to make people healthy. And the more we do, and this is my belief, the more we do that kind of thing that is really helping people, it's like heaven is paying back. It sounds like a religious thing, but that means all of a sudden you get lucky, and it always works for me like that. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to give to people, all of a sudden you get lucky. Call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's contrary to regular business model. Business model is there is an agenda how to make it work, how to loop them in.
Yeah.
This is not just help, and then heaven pays it back. Like it brings more people knows about you and whatever.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not gonna starve. Liu Yuan, my model that I'm following from the Qing dynasty, he says that's how it works.
Right.
It's like when you do the right thing, there's no way that heaven is gonna fail you. It's because you're just too precious. Everybody needs it. So you don't need to think about yourself in order to survive. You just need to help people, and then you see how it works.
Right. Contribute.
This is like my secret. How do you succeed? It's not like what's the tricks, how to pull them in. It's rather how to help them. Forget about yourself. Just help them as much as you can. And then you'll see how it's attracting.
We're all on that karma payment plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true, just how can you contribute to the world? It's such a basic spiritual principle that will guide you and will take care of you. I couldn't agree more. I have faith in that. I don't, as you said, it's not religious dogma, anything. I believe that, if I surrender to the fact that I need to become the person that can help people more, I can surrender and have faith that everything's going to be Irie.
Yeah. Do you know that story about Mozart and that other guy? I think.
Refresh my memory.
Yeah. I'm not sure of the accuracy, but that's how I heard it. There used to be Mozart, and there's another guy who was much more famous than him, a composer at that time. And all the royalty used to hire that guy and not Mozart. So that guy was very successful at that time. But today he's called that other guy.
Right.
It's because, he didn't have the right heart, but he appeared more successful, but just vanished from history.
Right.
And I think for us, we all want to have that Mozart heart, like the one that really had the heart that kind of transcends time, like Confucius, Mencius, Buddha, they're like transcends time.
Right.
Doesn't matter 2,000 years ago or now. And I think it's not that selfish aspiration, like I want to be remembered.
Right.
But this is the real heart of medicine. It's like you really want to help, and it's just crossed the ocean, it crossed time. It's like it makes our parents, if they're already in heaven or still here in this world, they look at us and it makes them so happy. Like, their kid, their child, son or daughter.
Right.
Something so beautiful became out of it, and this for me worth everything.
A true mentor of mine makes the distinction between, or two different mentors frame it differently. They separate the heart and the ego, and to reframe would be, what you said you're checking in on before always with yourself is, am I trying to obtain significance, or am I actually trying to contribute? And one is more about personal fulfillment, and the other to my mentor is about spiritual fulfillment.
Yeah.
And significance, okay. It as long as it's not your full driving force. Your ego isn't in charge. But real contribution is what you're speaking of, and that is huge.
But I am full for being financially successful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against it. Because when you're more successful, you can help more people.
Yeah.
If you don't have money, you can't even buy the good herbs. You have to buy cheap, crappy herbs.
Right.
But you could, if you're more successful, then no problem. Some people need help. You give them discount or free. It's much easier.
Right.
So I completely think that being financially successful is a great thing. I don't think that being poor is good. But on the other hand, it's a battle. Being greedy makes us succeed less in getting the medicine better. Right. We can succeed more in the clinic, but at the end, my son sit there, and then I had it, like I'm screwed.
Right.
Because then the money doesn't matter. Then it really needs to work, and it needs to work long term, short term, whatever, So we need to have a combination of this, like to work on our advertising campaign and stuff, and know how to make business. Mm-hmm. Which is not related to medicine. It's related to having any kind of business, selling flowers or selling cupcakes. It doesn't matter. You need to have a business model to know how to work.
Yeah.
But in this session today, I try to talk more about the medicine side.
Yeah.
Medicine side, we need to have that heart. It has nothing to do with the business.
Right.
It needs to have that heart. And if we have to lose that heart in order to make the business work, we better go sell cars.
Yeah. Well, one caveat to that would be, I guess it depends on your definition of business, in some respects too, because our support staff who I have at our clinics, they know that they're a part of the treatment with that patient, so the moment someone walks in the front door, they are a part of that person's experience, and it's all heart led, of course they need to be billed and scheduled and these things, and but ultimately what permeates everything is how you are with that other person. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you connect with that person. You start them opening, so when they come into the treatment room with the doctor or the practitioner, that they're already in the process of a transformation that you can help facilitate even further. So I that's how I have become an expert at reframing business, but I fully agree. There's got to be, you've got to have those check-ins, and I think that permeates. You keep going back to your son. If my son's in front of me, and that is my big takeaway from today. I love that so much.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, so, I could just go on and on and on forever, but normally after an hour, people are kind of falling asleep.
Well, if they're involved and they want to hear more, they listen a lot more, and that is why you have created the Hunyuan Academy, if I'm not mistaken. So how can people, in honor of your time and everyone else's, you're right, how can people get a hold of you? I'm going to put all these websites and to contact Yaron in the show notes, but just for the sake of someone listening on podcast, where do they go?
Well, they go to hunyuanacademy.com. That's the online school.
Yeah. Hunyuan, Hunyuan Academy.
Academy.com. If there are patients and they want to schedule patient thing, they go to hunyuancenter.com.
Okay.
And if they want to do free meditation sessions, which we just started today, they go to hunyuan.org.
Okay. Oh, okay. Awesome.
That's a new thing. And other than that, I hope we get a chance to talk again and share. And this was really great. And I'm so happy that you're doing this. I saw your other podcast, and this is amazing stuff.
Oh, Yaron, I'm honored that you took the time. I think this is personal now. I truly believe that your message is extremely important. And I'm not saying it's for everyone has to do, what we've spoken about a lot today and the Hunyuan, but it really resonates with me, and I'm so grateful to have spent this time, and I really encourage people that this resonates with at all to check out Hunyuan. That's what today was, obviously about, and I just want you to keep doing what you're doing, because I think it's beautiful. It's great.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Awesome. Well, then you and I will chat soon. Maybe we'll have a check-in, or who knows what comes next. I'm just glad that we reconnected to it. It's been a couple of years, so and I've still got a book of yours that I'm 110% more motivated to dive into it. When you gave a lecture at IFS a couple of years ago, and we talked a little bit afterwards, what resonated with me is that and I would boil this down to something very simple, it's more about helping be there with your patient, which I might call coaching, which I might call, or someone might call like different heartfelt support or psychology or whatever. But that is your focus, and it's just so refreshing and so great. I love it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, everyone check him out, and thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you again in the next Golden Podcast.